And we are back. So, I'd like to welcome to the stage a good friend of mine's, Kyle Woumn, man. How you doing, my brother?
I'm doing well, doing well. What's up, Marlon? How you doing?
I'm good, man. Striving through these past couple of days. We got some awesome attendees here. Really engaging, really excited to learn, figure out how to, take their career or their idea to the next level, man. So yeah, man, it's been good.
Man, that's dope. That's dope. Yeah, I've seen like the speaker lineup. You had some heavy hitters on here. I'm honored to be invited. So thanks for having me.
Yeah, man, appreciate it, man. So Kyle, man, we'll dive right into it, my friend. Where you from, Kyle?
So originally from Atlanta, grew up there, from Decatur, so East Side in the building. And then I went to Georgia Tech, studied computer science, and then I was like, let me see what this tech thing's about. And I was like, where do people go for tech? And of course, you can do that anywhere. But I was like, let me check out the mecca of tech. So I came out to San Francisco about 3 years ago.
Cool. Yeah, man, we met in Atlanta.
Yep, at the gathering spot.
Yeah, at the gathering spot, man. Shout out to the gathering spot. We met at Atlanta, and at the time he was working at Twilio.
Yep.
So talk a little bit about your CS experience at Georgia Tech, and then how did you find your way to Twilio?
Yeah, for sure. So when I was a student at Georgia Tech, I originally started studying computer engineering, and I didn't know the difference between computer engineering and computer science. And so I'm in computer engineering. I'm taking all these math classes. I had to take differential equations, digital signal processing, all these like math oriented electrical engineering type classes. And I'm like, I really don't want to do this. I just want to like code. And then I realized, and a friend of mine actually had an internship at Google as a software engineer after his freshman year. And I was like, oh, that's cool. That's what I want to do. And he was studying computer science. So I switched my major to computer science. And in college, I did a couple internships. My first internship, that's honestly the first job. First internship is the hardest. And I just want to get my foot in the door, get some experience. And so after my second year at Georgia Tech, I interned at General Electric in their energy management division in Salem, Virginia, a small town. I'm not sure if anyone here is from Salem or near Roanoke area, but I spent the summer there. It was a cool summer, but I knew after that I wanted to be in the Bay Area working at like a tech company. You hear about the Mark Zuckerbergs, you see all the news stories. So I'm like, that's where I want to be. And so I wanted to immerse myself in that. And so Georgia Tech has a career fair every September. And they have one specifically they have a general like majors career fair, and then they have one specifically for the College of Computing. And so I went to the College of Computing career fair, and literally every big tech company you could think of was there. You had Apple, Google, Facebook, like all these, VMware, all these companies. And so in the past, I had been to that College of Computing career fair, and I was like, and they usually have these super long lines, especially like the Facebooks and the Googles. They're like wrapped around. You're missing class while you're in these lines, and you wait like an hour and a half to talk to a recruiter or an engineer at the company just for them to tell you to apply online. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to try a different approach at this career fair. So the year is 2014. And so all these big companies are there. And then I see a company called Twilio, and I'm like, okay, I want to check out startups. And this is before people really knew what Twilio was. I really didn't even know what Twilio was, to be honest.
Let the people know, what is Twilio real quick.
Yeah, so Twilio is a cloud communications company that allows you to integrate communications into your app. So what does that mean? Essentially, that means you ever get like appointment reminders for like doctor's appointment, haircut via text. So essentially, all those apps that use or that send you those notifications, they actually use Twilio as the service to send out those messages. Or when your Uber driver gives you a phone call, the number that pops up isn't their phone number, and the number they see isn't yours. They use Twilio's phone number. So Twilio has this huge inventory of phone numbers. So they're that communications layer. So you probably have used Twilio or interacted with it so many times and didn't know it. It's behind the scenes, but those behind the scenes interactions make a lot of money for Twilio. But yeah, and so Twilio was like one of these. So I didn't really know what it was at the time. I didn't know what it was. And so they had a short line. So what I did was I went on my phone while I was waiting in line, Googled the company, did a little research, and then I was like, all right, time to finesse. So I spoke to the recruiter, and the guy, well, was actually a recruiter and an engineer there. And the engineer was a Georgia Tech alum, but he had graduated way before I started, and I didn't know him. But I was talking to him, and he asked me if I had any side projects that I had worked on. And in school, I wasn't like the super like coder type person that's like always coding in their dorm room. I was like very social, and I was also involved in like extracurricular activities. And so when he asked about like the side projects, I didn't have any, but I knew that was going to be a bad look if I just flat out said no. So I was like, I don't have any side projects, but it's not because I don't want to. It's because I'm involved in like these leadership organizations. And he loved it, gave me an opportunity. Fast forward, I interviewed, got the internship, and I interned there 2015 and 2016. Then I joined full time in 2017 after I graduated, and I was there for about 3 years as an engineer on the messaging team.
Nice. So you're at Georgia Tech, and it had your time and stuff there. You find your way to Twilio. One of the interesting things you talked about side projects. A lot of people was impressed with a particular side project that you built. What is that? And talk about that real quick.
Yeah, so after like I graduated school, I'm like, I have, when you're working, you have more time. It's like, your evenings are practically yours as opposed to school is like all the time working. So I was dabbling in a couple side projects, and one of them that really blew up is called Drinkstagram. And Drinkstagram is drinkstagram.com. And it's what it is a way for people to use to create captions on Instagram using Drake lyrics. And so like I'm a huge Drake fan myself. And one day, like I was just noticing, and I do it like I use Drake lyrics as Instagram captions, and I notice a lot of people do it. And then some people get lazy with it, and they just put insert Drake lyric here. And so I was like, I think this would be a cool project to like take on to create essentially like a Drake search engine where you can put a keyword that you're interested in creating a caption around, and it'll spit out a list of Drake lyrics with that, and it like blew up.
So, you talked about the idea and stuff with it. How did you build it? What are
Yeah,
some of the tools stuff that you use?
yeah. So when I first started building Drakestagram, I was like, okay, I guess the core functionality of it was to get the lyrics, right? To be able to get these lyrics and then parse them for these keywords. And so I originally was using this API called Music Match. And Music Match, they give you up to like, I want to say 100 or 1,000, I forget, but it wasn't enough. They give you that many like API like credits per day on the free tier. But then after that, after you exhaust the free tier, it's $1,000 a month. So I actually launched it using the free tier. And then once it ran out, I had launched it, and then people were messaging me like, "Hey, it's down." I was like, "Crap!" And so I'm like, "I need to come up with a fix." So I posted this like message to my Instagram story, because that was my main like broadcasting channel there. And so I was like, "Hey, it's temporarily down, so I need to come up with a fix." And so I was like, "I'm not paying $1,000 a month for a hobby project, I'm like, that's dead." And so I was like, you know what? I got to figure it out. And so then I had the thought. I was like, okay, I can. The website Genius, formerly known as Rap Genius, they have literally every lyric in the book out there for most popular songs. And so what I did, I was like, all right, I'm gonna have to scrape literally every Drake song off of Genius. And so that's what I did. So in the span of about like 6 hours, I literally stayed up that entire night. So I launched it New Year's Day 2019. And then it went down, and then I was like, all right, so literally that entire day I'm like essentially on call, right? I'm just trying to fix this as fast as I can. So I write the script to scrape everything off of Genius. I store those in a database, MySQL, and I store it on Amazon. And then for the front end, I use React to build the front end interface, and it's a very simple interface. It's just like a background image of Drake in a search box. But I wanted to make it as simple as possible. So and then I use Node.js as for the API layer for the backend, and that's essentially just communicating to my database. And so that's how I built it. And so once I scraped everything in there, scraped everything from Genius and put it in the database, I was able to get it back up. And now, like to this day, it has over 17,000 organic searches.
Dope, 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 dope. Okay, so you're in Atlanta. You find your way to Georgia Tech. You go through some internships. You get you making these dope side projects. You're starting to get some buzz and stuff in the community. You're at Twilio for 3 years. Now, while you're at Twilio for 3 years, you leave. some could argue that, you're on a fast track to, success and up the corporate ladder. Um, Talk about the process of when you start to understand that this may be an opportunity for you to, exit.
No, great question. So for me, I think the long game, and I know I mentioned like, when I was in college, hearing all when I switched to CS and hearing about like the Mark Zuckerberg stories and all these like tech companies like growing really fast. And a big reason that I wanted to learn how to code was so that I could build products for myself, pretty much be able to empower myself to build feel like whatever I feel needs to be in the world. And so I would dabble in side projects. I know I was actually working on one side project. It was called Kemet, and it was a way to connect people in Black Greek organizations. And I actually like published that app to the App Store, but I didn't really do much with it after that. And so I was thinking, and like I was working at Twilio, but I realized like what I really want to do. I see all these like big tech companies, getting these, or startups even getting these high valuations, and essentially like building cool things. And I was like, why can I do that? And so I feel like I've always had that entrepreneurial spirit, that hustle, like try to make something out of nothing. And so I had began like, exploring, seeing what options are out there, looking into different accelerators. And so a friend of mine actually had this idea for this company called Shopper, which is what I'm working on now. And back when the idea was first born, it was on-demand delivery for clothes. And I know, this after like the Ubers, there was like Uber for X, right? And so we were kind of approaching that Uber for X model, but we quickly learned that the unit economics for delivery businesses just don't work out that well. As you can see, like Uber loses $1 billion a quarter. It's not a profitable business. It's high growth, but not profitable. And so, so I was still working at Twilio when the idea came to me, and I wasn't really interested in the idea at the time. I was like, that's cool, but not sure my cup of tea. And my co-founders were very ambitious. They're like, we were going to apply to Y Combinator. And for those that don't know, Y Combinator is a accelerator based in the Bay Area. They're based in Mountain View, and a lot of the big tech companies that today, like Airbnb, Dropbox, they went through Y Combinator when they first got started. And so we actually applied to Y Combinator, and we got an interview. We didn't get it, but and this is while I was still working at Twilio. And I was like, I could take I am climbing the corporate ladder. I was software engineer 2 at Twilio. The next promotion would have been senior software engineer. And I was like, I could do that, or I could try to build a company myself. And I've always had this idea in the back of my head, like I'm going to be an entrepreneur, a technical entrepreneur. And I was just like, if not now, then when? And I'm like, I'm 25. I don't have a family of my own. So, limited responsibilities. So I was like, might as well take that jump. And so that's where I am now. And so I took that jump. It's a huge risk, even today, especially in the climate that we're in. But, I'm enjoying the ride.
So you said take that jump, and kind of want to dive into that because taking a jump is simple step, hard process.
Yeah.
So talk about the process of preparation to take the jump. That can be mindset, that can be savings, that could be family and friends. Like, you're crazy, don't do it.
Yeah.
So talk about that process when it came to understanding, like when you came to interest to the actual exit from your job.
Yeah, no, I'm happy to share the calculus behind it, because this was definitely a calculated step. I didn't just say leave. I didn't just leave my job and just jump, but I jumped with the parachute, so to speak. And so a lot of the things that I was thinking about was, when it comes to building businesses and startups, oftentimes they get some kind of funding. And before, I know I've seen founders that have gotten funding right like out the gate with just an idea, no product, no pitch deck or anything. But then there's also the people that are bootstrapping it, and they want to wait till they get traction before raising money. And so that's kind of where we're at right now. We're on that traction path, and then we're going to raise money, because oftentimes you get better terms in terms of like investment when you have traction. But for me, I was like, all right, I want to make this jump, and I'm like, I have to time box it. And so I said, all right, I'm going to save up about a year's worth of expenses. So say we don't get investment or, something, I'll be able to, live the basic necessities. And so that's what I did. I was debt free. I had paid off my student loans because I had student loans from Georgia Tech. So I had paid off the student loans. I don't have credit card debt. And so I was like, all right, let me save up a year's worth of expenses so I can give this my undivided attention, not have to worry about, maybe doing side projects or things that may distract me. And so that's what I did. And then I made the jump from there. And I looked at the opportunity cost too. I left a lot of money on the table. And I know a lot of people were like, you get stock from, a company like Twilio. I looked at their stock today, their stock's at $100 in this climate. And so I left a lot of money on the table, but I was like, it's going to be a bet on myself. And that was a bet that I was willing to take. But I would like mindset though. Also, that's something that like was really important for me. And luckily, I had been able to talk to a couple entrepreneurs that I know that have their own startups and kind of get feedback from them. But when it came to actually doing it, also like I go to a therapist every Wednesday. We were able to talk about this. You have to have like that mindset because entrepreneurship is hard, which I'm learning. But but when I took that jump, I kind of did it. And I know with Twilio, they have they allow you to do like an unpaid leave for up to 3 months. And I considered doing that, but I felt like if I did that, I would have that safety net in the back of my head, in the back of my mind. So I was just like, you know what, I'm just going to burn the boats and do it. And there's no going back.
You just said safety net, which is really interesting because you burn one safety net, but you also make sure to keep another safety net as far as building your expenses.
Right.
So talk about those are two things and stuff that can be pivotal because you on this safety net with Twilio, it can hinder you in a lot of ways. This safety net with building a year worth of expenses can help you in a lot of ways. The in between of that is are very mentally challenging. So you mentioned that you was going through to a therapist and stuff, and I don't want you to put all your business in everything, but what are some of the mental hurdles that you had to overcome as you're starting to align these things?
Yeah, so the mental hurdles really is like that cash the cash safety net, right? It's like, okay, I don't want to exhaust this, things don't work out, and then I have to have plan B, and I do have a plan B, and it's like either join something else or figure something out, make a plan. But I think that seeing that personal burn, like your runway, that personal burn, that those are like things well, at least for me personally, because I'm all about like financial wellness, financial savviness. Like I would hate to be in a rut over by doing a startup. Of course, every business is a risk, but it has to be a calculated risk. So those are like the things I talk about. Also, and it's really also a space for me to like in therapy to like bounce my ideas off of my therapist. It's kind of just like me talking out loud type session, and feeling heard, feeling accepted, feeling validated.
Okay,
go ahead. Well, I was just gonna say also one thing though I do wish I had done a little bit more was develop the idea while I was develop it a little bit more while I was still working at Twilio before fully making that jump. I think that would have been a good opportunity to still have some income coming in, but still being able to at least ideate and validate and make sure that I know this is like the idea that I want to do. And so I know one piece of advice I would have is just don't be too hasty to make that jump. And like continue doing it. But on the other hand, by me doing this full time, it's like I literally am able to give it my undivided attention. I know some employers may look at you sideways too if they know you're working on something on the side, and that could be like any excuse that to in terms of performance. So it's a fine balance.
You just said something interesting there that you wish you would have worked it on a little bit more while you were still working. Do you think that would have hindered you, as well? Because we're all human. It could have been easy for you just to, kind of keep pushing it off, or I get that bug later, and stuff. And so, one could argue that you made the right decision. One could say that, yeah, you should work on it a little bit longer. I know you're still early into it, but elaborate on why you just say you wish you would have worked on it a little bit longer while you was at work.
Yeah, I think when it comes to that, so on the, I wish I had worked on it a little bit longer while at work. It's just more so even before like building a product, and I would say a huge thing would have been like having the time and space to be able to like do user interviews, talk to people, see if this is something that they want, right? See if this is a product that people want or they feel like they need, that they would pay for. And then like once getting that validation, then leaving to actually build it. For us, like we had some initial validation, but it was like, okay, we got that validation and we're like, okay, let's just go for it. And a big reason too that I took that jump is because when talking to investors, especially like accelerators like a Y Combinator, or even like any like investors that are investing in pre-seed rounds, they want to know that there's at least one full-time founder, because for them they see that commitment. They're like, am I going to write a check to someone that's running the company but still working? They want this to be like your undivided attention. So that's why I don't regret it, but I do think that in terms of, and when making the jump, make sure that idea is fully baked and validated before figuring it out and making the jump.
You just said something interesting there too. They say, VCs want to know that at least one founder is full time. Genuine question: is that a state of privilege? Everybody doesn't have that opportunity, to work. People have kids and stuff like that, but they still want to. They still have this dream and stuff they want to work on. Is that a comment of privilege? As such, from your perspective, what do you think?
No, that's a great question, Marlon. That is definitely a comment of privilege, and that's one thing I remember when I first moved out here. And this is like when I had student loans, and I was just like, "How are people doing this? Like, how are people able to like do that?" I know, I forget which founder it is, but I know they were. I want to say maybe Mark Zuckerberg. I'm not sure who it was, but they said like their father invested $20,000 into their business, and I hear that oftentimes from a lot of founders that come from wealth and come from money. And so being able to take that jump, if like your finances, like say you have a brilliant idea, you can make it happen, but say you have like student loans or anything like that, that's definitely, or even like you said, like a family, you're not always you don't have that same opportunity to make that jump just like someone that comes from money. And so that is definitely a point of privilege. And um, yeah, it's hard to navigate that too, because like you have to make sure your ducks are in a row when if you have a family, you have mouths to feed. I actually heard from a founder. I was at a talk, and this one founder was speaking, and he was saying how he grew up dirt poor, and he had a family and he had kids, but he took the jump, and his father told him like that's the most selfish thing you can do right now. And what the guy did, he essentially, and this is before like COVID, he said he stocked up on a bunch of like non-perishable foods to make sure that his kids could eat. But he knew this is something that he wanted to do. And so it's definitely a risk, and it's even riskier, the older you get and the more like family you have. But yeah, being able to make that jump and be full time is definitely a point of privilege that I recognize.
So now you're full time, like you said, as Shopper. Um, Elaborate on what Shopper does. What's the goal, and then what's your day to day look like?
Yeah. So with Shopper, so like I said, we originally started off with the on-demand delivery for clothes idea, and I really resonated with that idea at first because whenever I would go to like different events, so where I used to live above a shopping mall, and so I would every time I would go to like an event, and this wasn't like every week or anything, but like say maybe once a month, there was an Express right downstairs, and I would get a new outfit from Express. And so I was like, oh, that's cool. Not everyone has that luxury to just go right downstairs, and say people are in a bind, they need an outfit quick, then they can get it delivered. But we learned like early on that the unit economics for it was bad. And so we did some more user interviews. And I know when it comes to building a startup, is what a lot of experts will say is like talking to your users, like these are the people that's gonna you need to find out what they want. And so we wanted to stay in the retail space. And so we're like, okay, how can we innovate here? And from what we heard from these user interviews was that a lot of people um, they don't they hate shopping because there's this huge cognitive overload. And if you live in a city like a San Francisco or a huge metropolis, um, it's like you have to, if you don't have a car, you have to Uber there. That's like maybe $10, $15, get an outfit, and then Uber back. And so people were saying like they hate that process, the huge cognitive overload of like so many options. Like when you're shopping, it's like you see all these things, and then it's like, do I want to try these on? You feeling lazy, and even online shopping, right? It's like you're still bombarded with a bunch of options, and so we're like, how can we fix that? And so, what Shopper does now is we're trying to help consumers discover new fashion forward styles that they can try before they buy, and they can try these clothes on in their home. So, I'm not sure if you're familiar with Warby Parker, how they had like for the glasses company, they have the at home try on. And so, we're trying to apply that to clothes. So, right now, we're up and running at shopperdelivery.com. And what happens is when you come to our website, we give you a 2-minute style quiz, and so we ask you a couple questions, get your sizes, and then from there, what we do is if you already know what you want, you can pretty much tell us what items you want, like paste in the links, and then we can order those on your behalf and let you try them before you buy them. And then say you actually want personal styling, say you just don't want to do the shopping at all, and you don't know what you want, we'll help actually style you, and we'll curate a lookbook for you. And with that lookbook, you can choose which items out of the lookbook you'd like to try on, and then you return them. Right now, our return window is 7 days. We're still like playing around with what we think is a good return window, so people don't actually wear the clothes. But yeah, our return window right now is 7 days, and you only pay for what you keep. So say you decide, okay, I like this, I want to keep it. So you only pay for the clothes that you keep, and then you can send the rest back. And the way we make money is we just charge a styling fee on top of that. So you pay that up front. It's $10 and then $5 for your first time.
So, are you delivering the clothes as
No, so
well?
we're not delivering these clothes. So the way it works is essentially like drop shipping. So we're getting the clothes. The clothes are being sent directly from the retailer to you, but we're fronting the cost. So I know a lot of people. What they've been telling us from the user interviews is that the time it takes to get a refund, they don't like that, or they want to get clothes before actually making that commitment of actually paying for them. They just want to try it on and see how it works. And today you can't really do that unless you actually go into a physical retail store. You can't like try on clothes, and so otherwise you have to buy things, or even like fit. You want to know if something fits.
Gotcha. So, what right now you're full time co-founder slash CEO, correct?
Right.
What does your day to day look like?
Yeah, so I'm currently full-time CTO. My day-to-day is very interesting. So I'm full-time on my team. I have two other co-founders that are part-time right now. The goal is to bring everyone on full-time soon. But so my day-to-day really involves talking to people, right? Talking to customers, trying to see like what people want, what people think about some of the ideas that we have. And then it goes to, all right, once we get that feedback, coming up with a solution, right? How can we kind of extract those high level themes, and then like putting something together? And so at the beginning, especially when first starting out a startup, I try to write as least code as possible. It's like, I know how to code, but I want to write as least code as possible, because coding is expensive. One, in terms of like, say you're hiring a developer, is expensive, and then it's expensive time wise. And so we're like, okay, to get validation, we want to move as fast as possible. So going in and being able to actually take the feedback that we get from users and implement it and put it in front of them, and also think of different growth hacks that we can implement. I know there's like the paid advertising route when it comes to like Facebook and Instagram, but we're like, how can we make people more aware? And so a lot of my day is like thinking about that strategy. And so one thing we're about to start doing is content marketing, having a blog to share out, that we can get more awareness of Shopper. It's like we want to advertise, but we don't want to be in your face, but we want you to know we're here, kind of thing. So that's kind of what my day consists of. And it's really exciting though, because it's like I get to wake up and I'm like, I'm working on something. It's like I'm directly attached to it, as opposed to when I was working at Twilio. So I enjoyed working at Twilio, don't get me wrong, but it was like, I'm not directly attached to the product.
With being directly attached to how do you balance work life now? Since you're a full time entrepreneur, or is there any such thing?
Yeah. So uh, for me, I would say I do keep a good work-life balance. I do spend a lot of time working. It's kind of, and I know lately there's been this term work-life integration, and so it's like, how do you integrate, your work and your life? And so and for me, I'm not really a morning person. And so like today I got up early this morning. I woke up at like probably like 6:30 this morning, but generally I'm a late riser. And so I'm like when I was at Twilio, I was in the office at 10 o'clock. And like usually my flow is like later in the day and like at night. Like that's when I get the best work done. And so it's really like I'm really working around like how I work best. I know, say once we get once we are more once we're further along and we actually have employees, I know some things may have to change in terms of like company culture, things like that. But like right now, I just kind of like do what works for me and like my co-founders, and try to go from there.
So what is people around you think? You know, I'm pretty sure maybe even parents or older family members, older friends. You know, a lot of our parents didn't have a lot of opportunity to go full time entrepreneur.
Yeah.
How are you balancing people around you? You know, because you know, like it or not, you know, we have influence from somewhere. You know, so
Right.
how are you balancing that?
No, it's been good, and my parents have actually been very supportive of this journey. And like my parents are actually, so my mom, like she was an entrepreneur. She had a cafe back in Atlanta when I was growing up. She had it for a few years. It eventually closed down. Like cafes are a hard business, especially in like office places. And so she went back to corporate America. But you know, she had the entrepreneurial spirit. My dad, like he has a 9 to 5, but he also does like photography on the side. And so like growing up, and I didn't even know it at the time, but growing up, like they're like I noticed like these side hustles or these hustles that they had. So they've been very supportive of me. I know they really just want me to do what's best for me. And then when it comes to friends, like my friends have been very supportive. Like I see a bunch of friends in the chat. I see Aaron, Ariana. It's really cool to be around people. Like, you know, I hit these people up. I'm like, hey, I got a few questions for you for Shopper. And I hate to be, and I'm always conscious because I'm like, I don't want to be that annoying person, but they've been like very supportive when it comes to like helping build. And so I know when building a business, it's really hard. So like having that tribe that supports you is, you know, great. And it's like, even if like someone doesn't want to like use the service or say they're not my ideal customer, like their thoughts are just equally as valuable, because it's allowed me to get inside like my consumer's mind.
For sure. Okay, cool. We're gonna open up for Q&A here. I think we got a question and stuff in there already, but before we do that, definitely appreciate you coming on. Where can people find out more about Shopper?
Yeah, so you can find out about Shopper at shopperdelivery.com. I'm gonna drop it in the chat. And then our Instagram and Twitter is at Shopper Delivery.
All right, cool. Oh, like my monitor just dropped off on accident. All right, hold tight.
Yo, my bad about that. I accidentally hit the button.
Are you good?
Are we
Okay.
back?
Yeah, we're good.
We live.
All right,
We live.
so we got first question is from Faisal. No, so it's Faisal. You
Yeah, I think
said the
it's
I.
Faisal.
No, you said the I is silent. Silent, so it's Faisal. He corrected me there yesterday. I definitely appreciated it. So what level does a product need to be at to receive a C/pre-seed level of funding? What is the best, most inexpensive way to see if there is a product and a market fit for your product?
Great question. So when it comes to pre-seed, when it comes to building or getting pre-seed level funding, it really depends. But oftentimes you don't even have to have a product. But for people that don't have to have a product, oftentimes they're like multiple time founders, you know? So they have a reputation in like the founder community or investor community. Either they worked at like a high growth startup before. It's like they have that kind of track record. So that kind of really depends on how far your product needs to be. But say, for example, someone like myself, I didn't have. I mean, I worked at a company, a pretty big company, but for me, like I didn't really work at like a high growth startup or anything like that. Right now I'm trying to get traction, but there are definitely a lot of like funds, they call them micro funds, and investors that are specifically in pre-seed. I know one is called like the Hustle Fund, and I know for them you don't have to have a product. Well, you have to have a product, but pre-revenue to qualify for them. So that's one. And then the most inexpensive way to see if there's product market fit for your product, I think there's a way to do that without even building anything. I know I've seen people like validate it through something like ads and something that they call painted door test. So it's like you're offering our product, and then you have like a checkout, and you have people check out, and say you don't even have a product. Say you don't really have a product, but you say you do, and then what you do is follow up with that customer and say, hey, we actually aren't, the product isn't ready yet, but we'll let you know when it is, and so they can have an option to be refunded. I know what some founders actually do is they'll give you half off just because you were one of the first people to say you're interested. So I know there's a lot of different tests to see if you have product market fit before building. And then of course there is the getting a developer to build an app for you. There's a lot of different options. I know one of the most common options that I see is that people use developers in other countries because it's a little bit more inexpensive to get your app developed. So those are different options. There's also like websites like Upwork.com where you can find contractors. But when doing that, I would definitely say vet those people very well.
Awesome. Next question is from Stephanie. She says, is your service available outside of the Bay Area?
Yep. Shopper is available outside the Bay Area, so anyone can use it.
When did that happen?
So that happened once we moved away from the on-demand delivery piece for Shopper. And so now that we're doing essentially allowing people to try before they buy, everything's just getting mailed out now. Like the clothes, they're getting mailed directly from the retailer to you. And so, but we're funding the cost for it, so you don't have to pay for it. So we're saying we're allowing people to do that from anywhere now.
Gotcha. Next question is from Leroy. He says, what are some takeaways that you learned from the Idea to App Store?
Yeah, so Idea to App Store was super great. Actually had a lot of so I had 5 people in the cohort that I did, and well, some of them I'm still working on it, but 2 of them actually successfully.
Mention what it is. What is Idea to App Store? Yeah.
So Idea to App Store was a program that I started to teach people how to build apps. So I would get a lot of questions amongst friends, like, how do you build an app? Like, I have an app idea. That's like the biggest thing people say to me, yo, Kyle, I have an app idea. And so it's either, can you build it for me? Or like, how do I build it? And so I was like, what if I created a program that taught people step by step how to actually build their own mobile app? And so I created some content. I created like a course around it, pretty much teaching people how to build mobile apps using React Native. And React Native is it's a JavaScript-based framework that allows you to build native apps to iOS and Android. So with these, in my program, I had 5 people. Now these are people that had never coded before, and one of the apps actually that got into the App Store was it's called USabiM. And so my student, she was from Nigeria, and she lives in Atlanta, and she's from Nigeria, and she wanted to create the Nigerian version of Heads Up, that mobile app game. And so we worked on that for about a year, and she submitted it in the App Store a few months ago, and she's like super excited. And like that gave me so much joy because it's like I guided her, but ultimately, she built the app. And so my biggest takeaway from that is, especially for people out there that are learning how to code, like, one, learning how to code is hard, but teaching people how to code is even harder, and it's definitely a skill. And it takes a lot of patience and being able to like break down those concepts.
For sure. Okay, next question is from Elena. She says, do you have a timeline for shopper delivery success? What indicators do you look to continue to next milestone/goals? What would happen to cause you to pivot to a plan B?
Great question. So I gave myself a year. Obviously, I don't want to. So I left Twilio in December. Obviously, I don't want to let that year go by and not have done anything, or not, I don't want to say not have done anything, but not have reached those levers. So right now, the timeline is, I'm seeing out until December. The indicators that I'm looking at and milestones is revenue and traction. So actually, like over the last couple of weeks, while everyone's been at home, people have been shopping. So people have been using Shopper, which has been really cool. So I want to see if we can like continue to grow on that traction week over week and month over month. So those are the like indicators, and then also like starting to talk to investors. So talking to investors is one thing that I've started doing, and I'm in this fellowship program right now. It's called On Deck, and it's an entrepreneur community. It's based in San Francisco, but it's actually a remote, and they're about to open up applications, so anyone can join if you're interested. But so indicators for success for me to keep working on this is like seeing revenue grow, and then also being able to get investment that can allow me to work on it longer. And then if I see this isn't working out, this isn't something that people want after trying, then I'm gonna either we pivot with Shopper and say we just figure Shopper isn't a thing. I do want to continue working on startups because I feel like this is I don't want to say my calling, but it's something that I want to do. But great question. I always have like that plan B in the back of my head.
Next question is from Rixel. He says, will you recommend moving to San Francisco if somebody wants to find an entry-level interns or apprenticeships for web developer positions? If I'm not mistaken, Rixel is in Chicago, I believe.
Got you. So I wouldn't recommend that you move to I'm not recommending, but what I'm thinking though, in terms of San Francisco for like entry-level internship or apprenticeships, San Francisco has a high cost of living. And so if that company is able to relocate you and pay you a comparable salary, I would say definitely go for it. But you don't have to be in San Francisco. And I know in these days, especially in the times that we're in right now, there's a lot of like remote first companies. So I think if you're able to learn and if you feel comfortable like learning and working in a remote capacity, I definitely think you don't need to move to San Francisco. I think if you want to be in San Francisco, it's a great place. And like, it's literally like, I don't know if you ever seen the TV show Silicon Valley on HBO. I literally just binged it a couple of weeks ago. But at the beginning, you see all the tech companies popping up. That's literally what it's like driving around San Francisco. So there's a lot of opportunity here. But I think if you want to get like, your feet wet in an entry level internship or apprenticeship, it's not necessary to come to San Francisco. It's nice if you're able to, but it's not necessary.
Okay. I'm gonna go to Ariana's question first, and I'll come back to you, Faisal. She says, "What's the website for the startup you mentioned earlier, On Deck?"
Yeah, so it's beondeck.com. So BE. Let me try to type it without leaving the chat. beondeck.com. Okay, there we go. And so it's not a startup, but it's a fellowship program with a bunch of founders. And so they have like first-time founders, people that have done like multiple companies. And so it's just a community, and they bring in like investors, founders to like support you. It's a great program. I've gotten so much value out of it. And it's kind of like reassuring because there's people in the same, phase I'm in where they're just starting companies, they left their jobs and they've taken that jump.
Okay, awesome. And then there's a question. It says, "Is there a link for the course for the ReactNav app program that you mentioned? I guess, are you still doing it?"
So I'm not doing the program, but I do have the coursework. And so if you're interested, I would say I'm going to put my email and email me, and I can follow up with you.
Okay, awesome. Well, Kyle, man, definitely appreciate your time. Looking forward to your success. Stories, stuff with Shopper. I didn't even know y'all pivoted, so I'm definitely going to take a look at it, and I actually want to talk to you about a few things too and stuff. And definitely feel free to follow with Kyle. I said, drop his email right there. But Kyle, man, definitely appreciate your time.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Marlon. I really appreciate it. Thanks everyone for tuning in. Thank you for the questions. Thank you.
All right, man. Great day.
See ya.
Okay, awesome. So we're gonna take a 9-10 minute break. Next up, we got Brian Brackeen. Guys, when I tell you this is a treat coming up. Like I mentioned before, Brian is a former Apple turned to CEO turned to VC. So he's going to talk about what type of transition engineers need to make from going to engineer to CEO if they're looking to raise capital. So we're going to take a brief intermission, and we'll be back in